What's going on, y'all? It's Kai Pizzle. Happy to be live today, Friday at noon. And so this is a exciting stream for me today because I've been talking about some of the things I've been seeing on Twitter and stuff like that. And I've got one of probably the more passionate Giant fans on Twitter, and I think he's going to bring a lot of good content today for a live stream, something you guys can enjoy. I'll bring him on now. His name is Will, and it's twentee7 on Twitter. This is your exact tag on Twitter, correct?
Guilty. Yeah, that's me.
That's him. And so I had to bring him on because I think that there's potentially a lot of opposites between how he views the Giants and how I view the Giants. I thought it'd be a great discussion. But Will, before we get started, for those that don't know you, describe a little bit about, how you became a Giants fan, and then we'll just get into it.
Yeah. I've been going to Giants games since I was 3 years old. My family's been going to Giants games since the 40s in the Polo Grounds. I've been going to the seat since I wasn't heavy enough to keep my seat down. I live and breathe, as most of the people who know me know, the New York Giants. I stay until the end of the fourth quarter. I don't care how much we're down. I go to the games. I don't care how eliminated we are. And I stand up when we're on defense. And, I really live for rooting on my New York Giants. And, my life, as I say in my bio, as a Giants fan, ranges from the highs of beating the Patriots and knocking out Tom Brady and the 18-0 Patriots, making them 18-1. I've got that 18-1 jersey in my bio. And
yes, you do.
To the lows of where I'm most known on Twitter now is I was always against the Saquon Barkley draft decision, and I saw several years of pain coming from the day that happened. And
so it feels like to me as a Giants fan, even going back to like the Tom Coughlin era, the very end of the Tom, like a lot of decisions have been very political almost, where you have this fan base is split on multiple things, like how do you feel about Eli Manning, yay or nay kind of thing. And so where do you stand on the current like hot topics, where I know where you stand, but for those that don't know, like Dave Gettleman, Daniel Jones, Joe Judge, feel free to how you feel about those, because I know you're against Saquon Barkley pick, but all the other factors like.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to look at it. I try to look at everything the way I've looked at everything since I was 3 years old, growing up and learning how to play chess. I try to look at things as here's what's happening, here's what's going to happen next, and here's where this is going to end up going. And sorry about the sunshine. I mentioned I'm on my way to Central Park. I love Joe Judge, and we'll start there. I think hiring Joe Judge was one of the best things that's happened to the Giants in really in the last decade.
Okay.
I think his introductory press conference, like I say, I like to see, here's a plan, here's where we are, here's where we're going, and here's where we're going to be. He laid that out. He said, we're going to start by building a foundation. This isn't going to be overnight. We're going to play downhill. We're going to play relentless. We're going to play every play like it has a life of their own. Those are promises he made that he kept. And then I don't want to, start piling on Gettleman right now, but when you look at his opening press conference, it wasn't quite as defined. It was, I like winning. We're going to kick so much ass. It's not going to be like a several year thing. We want to win now. It was here saying what people wanted to hear, not saying what a realistic roadmap's going to be. Daniel Jones, I was not happy when we picked Daniel Jones. I will certainly admit that. I was hoping Josh Allen would fall to us, and then seeing Josh Allen fall to us. And I didn't, I don't consider myself a scout. I don't look at tape. I don't try to, see what people are going to do. But it seemed like Jones.
Thank you for saying that.
No, different people have different skill sets. There are some people who can see a lot on tape that I can't see, and I can see some stuff in math equations that other people can't see. But I did think that we reached a little bit on Jones. And then I went to preseason that year, and his first game was against the Jets, and his second game was against the Bears. And if you remember, he looked absolutely lights out in preseason.
He did.
So basically, ever since then, I've been a big Daniel Jones fan. I've been, he had a chance to win me over. He's played with heart. And I kind of see what I think Joe Judge sees, and that, his numbers have not been starting caliber numbers by any stretch, but he's been in a really tough spot, and he does things the right way. Like, I'm not going to fault him for not putting up Dwayne Haskins Ohio State numbers when he plays at Duke, because nobody's going to do that with, nobody at wide receiver and nobody at the offensive line. So,
So you're a believer in Daniel Jones, though.
Yeah, I'm a believer in Daniel Jones. I'll say that. I don't think I think the Giants could upgrade. So if Aaron Rodgers is available, I'm not going to say Daniel Jones is good. So don't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
But I do think that Daniel Jones has a lot to show that we haven't seen yet.
But we can't. But there's no way you could get Aaron Rodgers
right now. For this year, no. But I think the way that everything's set up right now with Green Bay is they're making this Rodgers' last year, and they're going to help him go to a team where he wants to be.
Okay. So then that leaves you with Gettleman, and it seems like to me,
sure,
based on what I've seen on Twitter, you are very anti-Gettleman.
Yeah, I think that's a safe thing to say. I don't think I'd really be able to argue with that one.
So do you not give Gettleman? So if you like Joe Judge and you like Daniel Jones, do you not give Dave Gettleman any credit acquiring those two guys?
So, it's tricky because I won't give him full credit, but I won't give him no credit.
Yeah, I'm pro Gettleman. Okay. With that being said, I will admit that the Giants have to make the playoffs this year for Gettleman to realistically stay on the team, be a part of that organization.
I hear what you're saying there. But I want to answer your question.
Okay.
A lot of people go back to 2018, and at the time in 2018, what most people were thinking is, I want Saquon Barkley or I want a quarterback. And, there are a couple quarterbacks that were at the top of the list. And that was what, frankly, most of the media was reporting as a dilemma. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really seeing it that way. And I have, plenty of old tweets that, can demonstrate this. I wanted to see a trade down. I did not think the Giants had enough pieces to be able to be close to winning. And I wanted them to just start freeing up money, adding draft picks to the future and just being in position so we're not 4 years later and looking at what to do in 2022 and seeing $100 million due to like 5 or 6 guys, which is what Dan Duggan tweeted today, if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
So, when you talk about Jones, some people say like, the Barkley pick was fine because we got Jones anyway, and he's better than Darnold and he's better than Rosen. And like, that's well and good. But if the Barkley pick worked out in 2018, the Giants aren't picking 6 overall, man. They don't have Jones that falls into their laps.
But hold on, Will. Yeah. Don't you feel like Dave, okay, Gettleman, he really didn't have a choice. Okay, so let me just say, I just so that you know where I stand on it. I was naive. I was naive in thinking that the Giants could make one more run with Eli. Okay, maybe that's a little. Maybe I was too much of an Eli Manning fanboy. I felt like he deserved at least one more go at it. I was salty about how 2016 ended. No, it was 26. It was when the boat trip when they went to the Packers.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah. I was wanting to go one more. I wanted one more go at it. So I felt like you get a guy like Barkley help the running game. It's going to help Eli. I was naive. Okay, and I will admit that I was wrong in that. With that being said, I don't know if Dave Gettleman really had a choice at who to take it to other than Barkley. I think because it's a lose-lose. Because if he doesn't take him and Barkley goes who knows where and has a successful career, isn't that a bad look on Gettleman?
So, there are two sides of that, I think. There's is Gettleman, the one who's making the decision in 2018, or does his boss have that decision made for him? And if that's what you're saying, if he didn't really have a choice because, ownership was in on one last run with Eli, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But, my concern with that is, we've had Jerry Reese for 11 years.
Yeah.
Reese started to make a lot of mistakes. So now basically you're saying, okay, we finally need to replace him because it's not working, but it's it worked well enough that we can still try it again and, see what we have here.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to give it one last try, then why not just keep Jerry Reese in charge so that if it doesn't work, you can actually blow it up and really start over. I kind of looked at it as like, this was the real chance because, it's an organization, as we both know, that doesn't like to shake things up.
Well, just so that the audience knows, you feel like that 2021 is going to be affected still because of what happened in 2018, correct?
Oh, categorically, yes. I think, frankly, the most important the decisions that influence this year the most were the decisions from 2018. And I look at I look at some of the things that have happened since then that have actually worked out for us. Like, we were just talking about in 2019, 1 year after, taking a running back to win now, still having a pick early enough to get a quarterback without having to trade up. That's very fortunate. Last year, Nate Solder opted out. That led to enough money coming back in that we could fit in Logan Ryan on the books. That's very fortunate. We didn't plan ahead for that. That's not, because we did anything right. That's because, things worked out, and then this weird COVID thing happened, and all of a sudden, we found money in the banana stand. So, so I think, if had we done what I wanted in 2018, which was not spend money on Nate Solder, not, add draft picks, add, not add guys like Jonathan Stewart and Connor Barwin, keep Romeo Okwara. Maybe we're not going to be a better team in 2018. We probably wouldn't be, because we wouldn't be doing as much to improve 2018. We wouldn't have made the line better. But we have like tens of millions left over, rolled over, that would allow people to go after those guys who become available. Maybe go after a QB upgrade or something that they like even more than Jones. And I just think that we've been trying to play catch up really for over half a decade now, and that goes back to well before Dave Gettleman.
I will semi-agree with you that 2018 does affect 21 because the Giants, by going and getting Solder, by going and getting Barkley, you are clearly playing the card of we're making a run with Eli. Because we're gonna, and because instead of just burning it down from that point and starting from that, you're allowing yourself to be 1 year behind. So
and I'll say even more than that, it's a huge team. But if we look very specifically at the offensive line, like you look at what was done in 2018. They drafted Hernandez. They brought in Gates as an undrafted free agent, and then they signed both Solder and Omame. Solder and Omame, even if they worked out in 2018, it's hard to think that they would have really still, been around in 2020 or 2021. Certainly in Solder's case, when he would have been due like $24 million this year. It wasn't like they were doing anything to long-term build the OL. And had they, gotten an extra day two pick, Brian O'Neill, who went to Minnesota, just became the second highest paid tackle in football. Mm-hmm. Orlando Brown, who went in round 3, was a starting caliber right tackle, just went to KC now to play left tackle for them. You use a day 2 pick there, you probably fill a hole, and you don't spend that extra $40 million. So it's, a lot of people were disappointed they didn't use a lineman this year. I feel like, that line should have been more well developed by now, so year 4 doesn't feel like year 1.
So what you are, Will, is you're a Giants fan who's in 2021, but you're still burned by what happened in 2018 because you feel like it does affect. Which I'm not against what you're saying at all. Because again, there were naive fans like myself, a lot of us that we didn't care what the future held. It was all about now.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to
Go ahead.
I just want to say I don't want to say that I think that makes like a guy like you any that trivializes what type of fan you are at all. I mean, most fans, and I would consider myself in this, until 2017, and really the house of cards kind of fell apart with Odell going down, and really the defense quitting and everything going about as badly as humanly possible. I was in the same boat as you, man. Everything every year I was disappointed the Giants didn't trade down, because that's just kind of the way I felt. I felt like there was a premium to be gained from trading down. But I felt I would predict 16-0 in my head every year. 2017 was kind of the wake up call for me, and then the question was, in a lot of cases, like, I don't think they're doing the right thing. But even in 2018, I'm like, I don't think I didn't think we'd necessarily go 5-11. I just didn't think we'd go 11-5, and I didn't think the lack of progress towards 2021 would be worth it. So when I'm talking about firing Gettleman in 2018, I'm not saying because he's going to lose a couple games in 2018. I'm saying because in 2021, it's not going to be fun. And now it's 2021. And I know on Twitter, a lot of people are like, why are you still talking about 2018? When in 2018, it was like, well, why don't we let it play out and see what we got cooking here? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's in fairness to those that, it is easy to sit back and kind of say, well, the Barkley pick isn't that good. I just so you know, I'm not a huge Barkley guy. There's a lot of people that think Barkley is the best running back in the league. He's special. They really enjoy having him on the Giants. I think he's good. I think he's obviously made some big time plays for us, but I think, in my opinion, he's a little overrated. That's just, I think, to me, he does a lot of dancing. He doesn't really hit the holes. Yeah, he's going to make a special play here and there, but I don't view him as highly as, again, I wanted him picked. But now that I've seen him a few years on the Giants, I sometimes do have buyer's remorse. I'll be honest with you. So I feel the frustration of what you're saying. But as far as when I look at a lot of the moves, and I know that you're not going to agree with every move that Dave Gettleman made, but at this point in time, I think we're all nervous about the offensive line in 2021, and you feel like that dates back all the way to 2018, which makes tons of sense. But I personally like the totality of what Dave Gettleman has done from the start. I'm not going to sit here and defend Jonathan Stewart signing. I'm not going to defend Antoine Bethea. I'm not going to do that. Those things are, I get why he got Jonathan Stewart at the time, but it didn't work out, right? I hated Alec Ogletree. You know what I mean? I can't defend everyone, but at this point, I think Dave's done a good enough job to put a good enough roster on the field in 2021 to be successful. And I think there's a lot of people out there, and I think you fall in this boat. I love Joe Judge too, but some of this has to fall on Joe Judge in 2021. He has to produce as the head coach. He gets a lot of slack for last year, but at the end of the day, he was a 6-10 coach. I don't put all that blame on him, but you get what I mean? It just feels Joe Judge has this long leash, but why is that though? Why does he get a pass? And I like Joe Judge. So, again, I just don't understand why all the blame falls on Dave Gettleman.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really good question. I think, go back to what we were just talking about in 2018. I went into 2018 thinking that,
and Joe Judge has nothing to do with 2018.
Of course.
Obviously, and let me just say this too on that, Will, is I felt like, and there's a lot of Giant fans that like Pat Shurmur as an offensive coordinator, but obviously he was not, in my opinion, he wasn't a leader of men. So I think he wasn't a great head coach. So again, that's not an excuse for the picks and this and that. But, I think Pat Shurmur was a terrible head coach for us. He just wasn't even a good head coach. So in a lot of ways, these players that are coming in, granted, some of them were past their prime, not good pickups. And I didn't love Golden Tate, all this and that. But
don't get me started on Golden Tate.
The fact is I feel like not all of it goes to Dave Gettleman. Not all of it.
So to answer that, I'd say, going into 2018, I didn't think 2018, I didn't see a way that the Giants could get from 3-13 realistically to having a competitive team in 2018 without completely mortgaging the future and, really backloading everything and being in a really bad spot, kind of like they did in 2016, but worse. So, I never blamed Shurmur. I never blamed Gettleman for a bad 2018. And in the very same breath, I don't blame Judge for a poor record in 2020, because looking at the roster he inherited, looking at the way that they started to build it, he wasn't, like he said in this opening press conference, he didn't promise a playoff contender overnight.
It was a COVID off season too.
Right. I frankly considered 2020 a pretty rousing success. Going 6-10, and you look at the way they started to build the team. I think this is a lot's changed in a year, but they brought Bradbury and Martinez in, and they paid most of the contract in 2020 instead of backloading the deal to pay it in 2021 and 2022. Now that's changed as they changed the cap, but they weren't just saying we need to take as much as we can now and worry about the cost tomorrow. So when they're taking a more responsible way, I can kind of treat them, and give them credit for having a more responsible, for taking a little longer to get to where they're going to go. Now you talk about the offensive line, Judge. I think Judge has more power than Gettleman right now within the organization. And if they
okay, well, let me stop you there, because I've heard that. I've
Yeah.
heard that stuff on Twitter. I am not 100% in agreement with that, because there is a lot of people that they think that Joe Judge has now taken over the reign. And Dave, here's what I think. Here's what I do believe. Dave Gettleman allows coaches, Jason Garrett, Patrick Graham, and Joe Judge, to go out and get their guys. Hey,
I think a great example of that is James Betcher. I mean, how many of those guys, on the 2018 and 2019 defense came from, Arizona's random reserves and role players there.
But if that is the case, though, Will, if that is the case, then why would we put any blame on Dave Gettleman if the roster is poor?
Because in my opinion, and we don't know exactly what
We're
came
guessing,
from the coaches and what and what came from there, but we can kind of look at clues. You look at Jonathan Stewart, who had just come from Carolina. That who had just played under Mike Shula, who is the offensive coordinator who the Giants brought in from Carolina too, where he'd worked with Gettleman. That was very clearly a Gettleman move. I think everybody would pretty much be on the same page there.
I agree with that.
And
let me just not to defend it, but I think they got Jonathan Stewart to give Saquon a chance to have a veteran presence to help him with other things.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay, and I agree that didn't work out. Right, Stewart wasn't a good pick.
But you look, that's the same reason they brought in Connor Barwin that year, and that's that's at the end of the 2018 season. I've read this so many times I can probably quote it verbatim. He's one of the reporters asked him, so would you look at some of your miscalculations in free agency? And he'd say, Jonathan Stewart and Patrick Graham, they were brought here for very specific reasons other than their play that, says what you were just talking about. Yeah. So, I'm not going to, call them a mistake. And then
but you can counter that with it, because you would think Stewart is a Gettleman guy, but you also think James Bradbury's a Gettleman guy.
Right. But I'm not, I'm not saying every Gettleman guy is bad. That's not where I'm going. But then you look at the year later, and you got Golden Tate coming in and Antoine Buffet, and then Joe Judge takes over and he gives his opening press conference, and people are starting to talk about veteran mentors, and what he says is a very different tone. Is I'm not I don't have my 14-year-old babysitting my 5-year-old. Players play, coaches coach. And we're not and we haven't been, getting in those guys who are at the end of their careers to be quote unquote mentors. I mean, maybe you could say that a little bit about Nate Ebner, maybe a little bit about Kyle Rudolph. I'm not, as enthusiastic about that signing as some of the other moves, but that change of philosophy is very stark from what we saw in 2018 and 2019. Then you look at trading.
Why don't you like Kyle Rudolph? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, I think Kyle Rudolph is a great guy, and I think he's a great. He's had a great career, but he's 31, 32. The Vikings just saved $5 million to get rid of him so they could give their more athletic younger guy, Irv Smith, more looks. Obviously, Smith is now out for the year, so that didn't work out. But it's pretty much like Antoine Buffet. The Cardinals saved $3 million to cut him, and then we gave him $3 million to play for us. Rudolph's.
But isn't that because our guy can't play?
You think Engram can't play, and you think they got Rudolph?
I'm so anti Evan Engram.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way. I think
I've given him, I feel like as a fan, so many opportunities to win me over, right? And he does it every training camp. He does it every preseason. And you can argue that he's the reason why we didn't make the playoffs last year. Now, I don't want to put blame on one guy, but at the end of the day, if he catches the ball against Philly, we're in the playoffs. Evan Engram is not going to change the narrative of who he is. And I personally think getting a guy like Kyle Rudolph is a guy that's going to help us in the red zone to secure that big catch and to be that safety net for Daniel Jones, because Evan Engram the drops, there's a lot of things that he's done poorly. Look, he makes a splash play here and there, right? He teases you. He teases you. He'll make a play where he looks like a freak, and then he has the tip ball that gets intercepted. Or he's already hurt going into week 1, for example, this season. I'm done with Evan Engram. Anything other than Evan Engram is okay with me. But
I think there are a lot of people who share that, and I think there's part of me that similar with the Barkley pick, and without getting too into that, from day one, from draft day, I've always said that, this draft decision will always overshadow what he does on the field. And for me, trading Saquon, there's like a PTSD part of it that would be like, okay, now I don't have to be haunted by, this decision that I think was frankly a decision that will, that could go down in history books as like, this is, how even the best player can be overvalued and not end up being the best in the best interest of the team. So, if you want to tell me that, you've seen so many losses because of Engram and, it'll be healthier for you as a fan to see Engram on another roster. I get it. Like, I'm not,
So
I disagree
but
with
you
it.
feel that way about Barkley almost.
Yeah, but I don't blame Barkley personally. Like, I think Engram is about what his shortcomings are. I think Barkley's been put in a no-win situation ever since he was drafted. I think basically, the organization hoped that he would put on like a Superman cape and be able to like ignore the bad O-line play and just teleport from the 10-yard line into the goal line. And that's not really how football works. But
Sure.
to what I'm saying with Engram, and this might be a little bit of a cop-out, but, it's very clear from what he said that Joe Judge really likes Evan Engram. And, for whatever reason, I don't understand it, but for whatever reason, his peers voted him into the Pro Bowl last year, even despite, a montage of, coming up short. There's no other way to put it. But, I go to, do you know Bill James? He was a longtime Red Sox scout. He's like the father of baseball analytics.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, he's on Twitter, definitely a character. But what he once said is, bad teams tend to blame their best players for losing. And I don't understand why Ingram's our best player. Yes, he's athletic, and I get he's athletic, but he doesn't, his routes aren't crisp. His blocking has been an issue, and his hands have been an issue. Those are very important parts of being a tight end. Do you
personally think he's our best player?
I haven't seen it, but I trust the experts who claim to say that he is, basically. And so, like, I feel like, if these defenses keep saying that he's the guy that they have to worry about when they're playing us last year, and the coaches are saying he's the guy that, kind of makes the offense work, I think there's some truth to that. And I think, like, if when we play against that Cardinals team where Budda Baker's marking, taking him out of the game all game, and, Slayton and Shepard can't win their one-on-ones, that's why you need guys like Tony and Galladay to upgrade around him. So I think Engram still, I've been a week away from predicting Ingram's breakout game for like the last 4 years. So, there's a joke in in trading and finance, you're either right or you're early. And I haven't been right, so I've been early in picking that Ingram's been about to break out. But, I don't want to give up on him. I don't think that he's like, he's got injury problems or anything like that. I think he works his tail off, and I think he's been trying to do too much, kind of like I think Barkley's been in. And, I think, I don't think you can look at what Rudolph's done in his late 20s and mid 20s and think that he's going to be able to continue doing that. So I thought, especially with all these wide receivers we've got, maybe Booker and Barkley at the same field, I just don't see enough snaps to go around for Engram and Rudolph to make, $6 million on him or whatever worthwhile. So that's why I'm kind of against that.
Okay, that I get that. I get what you're saying, and it seems like to me that you're very, contract based fan, where you put the numbers with the player, and if you don't think that the numbers, if the opinion of the player doesn't agree with the numbers, it causes you to be not necessarily anti the player, but you're just not going to fall in love with that player because you don't feel like the contract that they have is worthy of who they are.
Yeah, well, I'll say, even going into even up to 2015, even after the Giants were 7-9 in 2013 and 6-10 in 2014, I would go into every year thinking how does the Giants get to the Super Bowl? And really after 2017 is when that changed for me. So for me right now, I don't think the Giants are, months or even a year away from the Super Bowl. So if they're making a significant move, I've got to say
how long do you think they're away from the Super Bowl as a fan?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to put a number on it because I think actually 2021, I'm one of probably the very few fans who'd say 2021 got them farther away because I think a lot of money came back onto the books.
Wait, so you think they've got worse?
No, I think they got better today, but they have more obligation. I think their Madden rating compared to this team versus last year's team went up. But
okay.
But if you look at how they paid for that, you look at guys like Williams and Logan Ryan now, and Adoree Jackson. It's like they're here for 3 years, And to that, you think, they pay a third, or maybe because of, the way that, the cap change, maybe you make it, 30%, 35%, or 25%, 35%, 40%, or whatever it might be. It's like 10%, 45%, 45%. So it's like going 2022 and 2023, there's going to be a lot of tough decisions that are going to be made to try to pay for, going maybe 9-8 this year. Like, I don't think Jabril Peppers is going to be able to be a part of, the long-term solution. They're going to have to make some of those tough decisions. That's why Tomlinson's not here. That's why Zeitler's not here, because they have to, make some of these tough decisions if you want to pay Leonard Williams $110 million over 5 years, which, if you look at the last 2 years too, that's basically what it comes out to.
Well, they're going to have to do something with Xavier McKinney, because you can't draft him in the second round and then have him sitting on the bench. I get why Logan Ryan is playing, because he was pretty much a leader of this defense a year ago.
After McKinney went hurt, yeah.
They obviously probably wasn't expecting to have Logan Ryan until they went out and got him, and then all of a sudden he has this big presence, and now you can't let that go. And so, there's definitely some tough decisions, and but I'll say this, like, okay, so again, maybe I'm biased. I want to. Go ahead.
Just because this is kind of a bit of a metaphor. What did you think when Odell was traded?
I was done with Odell.
You were done with Odell.
And so here's the thing. I gave,
kind of like we were talking about Engram, like, you're just like, get the hell out of here. I don't care.
At that point, I was done. And I'm going to tell you why I was done with Odell. And partially of what I was done with Odell was, to me, the abuse that he was given to Eli.
I get
because that. I made every excuse to like Odell. I made even the boat trip, I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll live with it, But when he went on ESPN with Josine Anderson, and she was like, do you got a quarterback problem? And he basically
just gave that little, like, you said it, not me. No,
and when he did that, I said, I'm done with him, because I've made to me, I felt like OBJ was being in a domestic violent relationship, like it was just, I was taking abuse.
I've said the same thing about Gettleman.
No, I don't think Gettleman, I don't know if it's that extreme with Gettleman, but OBJ, I just felt like that. I felt like he was doing to the Giants, and as a fan base, we were having to take blows with it. So I was yes, the way I feel about Evan Engram is how I feel about OBJ. Although Evan Engram hasn't brought that kind of distraction.
No, I understand. You know what you're saying, though. You're just saying that in general, the headaches aren't. You're saying the headaches aren't worth the best case. And
well, it's just like it's
a very different type of headache.
He's a tease. Yeah, he's a tease, because he makes that big time play where he says, "Wow, he is a Pro Bowl tight end. I see it." But then he makes, to me, he makes more bad plays than he does good. He's had blocking issues in his career. I don't even know if that's fully fixed. In my opinion, when the Giants have been successful, whether it's the 80s or the 90s, they never had a flashy tight end. Jeremy Shockey was flashy, but we won Super Bowls with Kevin Boss. We won Super Bowls with Kevin Ballard, Bavaro. So, like, to me, the Giants have never needed that tight end kind of presence. I do want to say this, that I feel like the Giants can make the playoffs in 2021. Maybe I'm biased as a fan. If that happens, I feel like everybody maintains their jobs. Gettleman, obviously Jones maintains the quarterback. Obviously Judge. I think Jason Garrett, which I haven't even asked you about Jason Garrett, because Jason Garrett's a huge hot topic within the fan base.
A lot of people hate Jason Garrett.
Well, I think he's gone regardless in 2021, good or bad. Because obviously, if the offense, because I think he's going to get a head coaching job again. Maybe not if the Giants are really poor offensively, but if the Giants make the playoffs with him being the offensive coordinator, he's going to get a job somewhere. I mean, the Chargers even teased with him a little bit in the offseason. So I think
it reminds me of when the Raiders teased with Kevin Gilbride back in the day.
Yeah, and which is funny, because Kevin Gilbride got a lot of heat too.
Exactly.
Everybody called him Kill Drive. So it's like,
not a Gilbride fan over here.
But I think what I'm saying is everybody's gotten heat. I don't remember if Sean Payton got the heat when he was the offensive coordinator.
Well, he lost the play calling,
But yeah, he did. But I guess that does answer. He did get the heat, but I don't remember. I don't know if the fan base. Do you remember if the fan base was hot on him?
It was so different, because you didn't have social media. You didn't.
Yeah,
you didn't have the instant reactions. Like, there'd be a training camp fight and nobody would know about it, instead of everybody.
It was a
you
different
got
time to be a fan. You're right.
you got training camp fights now, and people want to like yell at ESPN analysts for giving their opinion if it doesn't fit with what they want it to be. Like,
yeah. Well, the point I bring this up is Jason Garrett is not alone with being a Giants offensive coordinator and getting a lot of heat.
Right.
They've all gotten heat pretty much.
Well, if you look so to ask about what I think about Jason Garrett, we've been talking about fixing the running game really since 2011. Like, that 2011 Super Bowl winning team did not have a good running game. I think it was 31st or 32nd in the league.
You're right.
And I think Eli never being a running threat hurt the running game. Like, I don't think, I think if Jonathan Stewart stayed in Carolina, Jonathan Stewart stayed in Carolina next to Cam Newton. Like, you see what we can do, how much easier running backs have when Jones can run versus when Jones can't run, because defenders have to think.
Yeah.
So going back to all that, I think last year the running game looked better than it's looked in the last 10 years, and
with
obviously
Gallman.
with Gallman, with Alfred Morris, with whoever, with Devonta, and I think the person who deserves the most credit for that is frankly Jason Garrett. And yeah, I think I didn't think the passing offense would be as bad as it was last year. I thought Jones was better. I thought Shepard was better. I thought Slayton was better. I never liked Tate, but I thought Engram was better.
Sure. They didn't have a lot to work with offensively.
Yeah, I didn't think they had a lot of work to work with. But it's like you look at Jason Garrett, and you look at the offensive coordinators we've had, beforehand, like Mike Shula, Mike Sullivan, Ben McAdoo, Kevin Gilbride. Like, who do we say, wow, I want to replace Garrett with that guy. We let get away. Maybe McAdoo because he was an okay offensive coordinator, but there's really nobody.
Yeah.
And then you go back to like how much of this cup falls on Judge, because what you were asking me earlier. One of the reasons I was kind of scared of firing Shermer, even though I didn't think Shermer was the right guy, is I was just like, if Gettleman's not the right guy, or if Gettleman's not the right guy and they're still trying to give him another chance, then you're going to give Judge like a messy plate that he can't really work with. By the time Gettleman's replaced, if there's a new GM, I love Joe Judge, but if the new GM decides he wants to go with somebody else, you can't force the coach on a new GM as you're trying to finally get things right. So it's like, maybe we finally got the head coach right, but now, like, it's a non-zero chance that,
is there anything that the Giants, is there anything that the Giants can do to turn your opinion on Gettleman as a fan?
I don't think so, frankly. I think
you're done. You're done with Dave Gettleman. You're one of those that, and this is fine.
Yeah.
This is great because
I'm being honest.
This is great. This is why I went out and reached out to you on Twitter, because you're one of these, and I'm look. I've been wrong as a Giants fan. Again, I openly admit that I was naive in thinking that 2018 we can go to Super Bowl if we just get this piece and we're ready to go. So I admit that, but there are fans out there like yourself. There's nothing the Giants can do to bring Dave Gettleman to the point of acceptance in your eyes. Like they can go to the playoffs and it doesn't change your opinion. Because I want to say this. Offensively, I don't think he's done a great job building the team. Okay. It's hard for me to sit here and say, if it was Daniel Jones a reach or not. Like I feel like the Giants had no choice. If that's your guy, you have to get him whenever you have.
I agree with that. No, I agree with that if that's your guy. The only issue though is, when they drafted him, given what how the team looked before that, and you see that now, they didn't really give him a chance to show what he can do. With a functional line, with functional weapons, while building the defense. Like, they did a lot to fix the defense last year.
And don't get me, the organization, the way, and this doesn't involve Gettleman, but, they really let Eli Manning down. So, I mean, the organization building structure and all that from the top up with Mara, like, they pissed me off because Eli didn't deserve to go out the way he went out.
You're right. And we got away from this earlier, but I would say the same thing about Odell, actually. I think, they really let Odell down. And, if you go back to when Gettleman took over, his first press conference, he said, I don't want guys who like to play football. I want guys here who hate to lose. And I'll tell you, in my opinion, the two guys on the Giants when he took over who most hated to lose were Odell, and probably after Odell, Landon Collins. And,
and I don't think, don't tell me you're about to defend Landon Collins.
Oh, I like Landon Collins a lot,
But he couldn't cover anybody anymore.
No, I mean, I think he was hurt.
Tackling machine.
I think he was hurt. He was playing hurt, and they had no pass rush. So I think there's a lot in there. But
Okay.
but with Odell, I don't think Odell handled things the right way. But I think if Odell could change anything, it would be not he would want to win. I think he would take 2 catches for 23 yards on a 13-3 Giants team, and I think he always would have been that way. And I think it was clear in 2018, in 2019 too, that it was like, we want to get this right, but we also want to respect Eli's feelings. We want to do it our way. We don't want to rock the boat too much. And I think Odell was trying to be like, look, I want to win, and the front office isn't doing things the right way. And the line I always use is like, I say there's a fine line between being composed and being complacent. And you look at Eli and Odell, and they're both on very, very opposite extremes of that that balance. Eli always composed, but looks kind of complacent. Odell, never complacent, looks never composed. And I think you need to like a little bit of a balance in there to have us a healthy locker room. And I thought Odell was really one of my favorite Giants. However, I think trading him was the right move because I don't think the Giants had a window where they could have won with him, before he turned 30, and then would just be stuck with a unhealthy contract. So even though I think trading him made them worse in the short term, I absolutely was 100% behind that as a move. Obviously, I was very upset then when they wasted half the savings on Golden Tate 3 days later, but I thought that made a lot of sense. And now we look at 2021. That's like a very, very opposite direction. They're borrowing, they're using 2022 and 2023 money to try to make 2021 make sense. And yeah, maybe they make the playoffs and go, and go 10-7 doing that. But with, all the questions that are going to be facing them in the forward, I don't think that absolves, what Gettleman said. And, we're going to come here and I'm going to kick ass. And, regardless of how much money it spends to do that, I just don't think, I don't think the results have validated a very, very broken process.
So you said you agreed that it was time to trade OBJ. But let me ask you. So as somebody who's an anti,
I actually wanted Odell traded the year before because
you probably didn't even want the contract. Rebuild. Like there was probably no. Yeah,
because I wanted to rebuild, and I thought 3-13 meant the team wasn't wasn't a borderline playoff team, and I thought that every move about 2018 was about 2018. And, which was, the whole point of changing GMs was so that, because GMs always have, they have a self-motivation factor too. And, not to get too heavy, but if you take that, a step further, like our country's Afghanistan policy right now is a mess,
sure.
Partially because, people don't want to take, responsibility for what the person before did wrong. Sure. And you look at that, the same thing with, with a general manager. When you finally take over and start with a clean slate, that's when you can really say, okay, I'm going to do the hard stuff like, the 76ers did. We're going to start the process. And, 5 years from now, maybe it's going to pay off. So,
this is why I brought you on, because
sure.
I saw a lot of your stuff on Twitter, and you are anti-Gettleman, and I'm pro-Gettleman. And with that, so I'm just curious, as someone who's anti-Gettleman, is there any move that he has made? And you did mention OBJ about trading him. Is there any move that Gettleman has made that you love?
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, there were moves that he made that I loved and I got wrong. I loved the JPP trade because, like I said, too. Like in 2018, I was worried about the future. That trade was more worried about the future. Would I have been happier if they traded Vernon instead? Much happier. I thought, JPP was, a drafted homegrown Giant. He was a part of our Super Bowl. I liked him, but I still thought that it was moving us in the right direction. So I
will agree with that. I actually thought JPP was done, and then I'm sitting here even watching him last night, and he
looked great last night.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like I was wrong on that. I'll take ownership in that.
And I'll say, I'll pretty much say that almost all of the 2020 offseason I liked. I didn't like the David Mayo contract, and because from day one I didn't think that made any sense, but I thought, all of 2020 was finally looking more towards the future than looking towards 1 year, especially because I didn't think 2020, was 1 year away. I thought maybe we were 3 years away going into 2018, But then after the 2018 offseason, I thought we were more than 3 years away. That's why I keep pointing to that. And that's what, John Mara said in the press conference too. He said we went 6-10 because they screwed up so badly in 2018.
So it brings me to the point here.
Yeah.
If Giants have a successful year,
yeah,
or let's say they have a successful couple years, it's all going to be because of Joe Judge, right?
No. Well,
will Dave Gettleman not get any credit whatsoever? Because let me say, I want to bring this up too. I feel like defensively he has put together, and you did mention this earlier about Joe Judge having a lot of say. I feel like what the product that he's going to put on the field defensively is going to be one of the top 10 best in the league.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And a lot of people will look at like we were the 9th ranked defense or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think that, those rankings in defense really don't mean anything.
I agree. I 100% agree with that.
Just for anyone watching why I say that, when they say you're the 9th ranked defense, that means 8 teams gave fewer yards than you. And that would mean, 22 teams gave up more yards than you.
But schedules play into that too.
But schedules, how many possessions you have, what the score is, if you're, if you can't score and you're down 17-3 and it's the fourth quarter, and your opponent's just going to run 11 yards in 3 plays, you're going to be a pretty highly ranked defense. That doesn't mean you're a good team. Like the 2011 defense was ranked very low, but that was a hell of a defense because the offense would score quickly. But I think the defense has certainly improved. I don't think that it's you can expect the defense to be quite as dominant as they were last year. Like Bradbury looked like he was the best cornerback in the league. I think he's still a very good player, but you can expect him to get beat a couple times. That's just that's what happens. And so sorry to get back to what you're saying about setting up this great defense. Like it's not.
What I'm saying is if the team has success, okay, and because I feel like when I look at the defense, I feel like Dave Gettleman has a lot of say in this defense. I feel like because obviously he did go out and get Leonard Williams, right? He did go out and get James Bradbury, which was one of his guys. I think the Logan Ryan deal, you could argue that might have been a little Joe Judge just because the Patriots connection, right? But then a lot of these other guys, like I don't. I feel like Blake Martinez. That's a Dave Gettleman. I feel like pickup.
Well, that's Graham. Also the Graham connection.
Could be a Graham connection. But the point I'm making, Dexter Lawrence. I think that's a Dave Gettleman potential. So the point I'm making is I feel like this defense is going to be really good. And if the Giants are successful in 2021, it's going to be because their defense is really, really good. I don't think the offense. I think the offense can win games. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to how good is the defense. And if they do succeed, I want to know, like, as someone who's an anti-Gettleman guy, is Joe Judge the only reason? Is he the only person that's going to be getting the credit here?
So, I think I think I don't. I know there are all sorts of people on Twitter who don't like me and who will see something that I say and then take a different meaning of it and like
Twitter's very
like an example is I'll say like Judge's influence has changed has changed the direction and it's clear that his influence has changed the type of players that the Giants look for. That doesn't mean everything good is Judge's decision, everything bad is Gettleman's decision. Like
that's what I'm saying because you see stuff like that on Twitter. You see stuff. Surely you know who Mike Too Nice.
You see that. I think. Sorry, go ahead. What were you about
surely to say? Mike Too Nice.
I thought that's what you were saying. Yeah, no, Mike, he's an anti-Gettleman guy as well. So sure. I mean, you guys are obviously going to bond. But the point is look, and this is not I'm a Giants fan. I want the Giants to be successful because I like the Giants, right? I fell in love with the Giants well before Dave Gettleman, right? I fell in love with the Giants well before Joe Judge. So these guys are just part of the story that is the New York Football Giants. What I'm saying is I also feel like credit deserves to go to people who deserve the credit. And as I started, like, it's very political, right? Some of these topics where you're either on one side of the fence or you're not, and this goes back to even Eli, but Gettleman most notably, where there's Gettleman guys and then there's people who's anti-Gettleman guys.
And then there's this fight within the fan base that says, well, no, that's not Gettleman. There's no success there because of Gettleman. It's because we got the guy Joe Judge. Because I think we all agree we all love Joe Judge. We all agree that we like Joe Judge, but Joe Judge doesn't even get any blame.
Yeah,
and I think it's easy to point to Joe Judge, is what I'm saying.
So where I come from with Joe Judge is, well, right now, this isn't really what you're asking, but right now, if I had to rank the authority of non-Mara voices in the Giants organization, I'd have 1 Judge, 3 Gettleman, and I'd have Kevin Abrams as 2, because I frankly feel like they've already started moving to Abrams. Like Abrams was the one who worked the phones who worked on draft day for the trades. It seems like they've what I've always thought about Gettleman is his scouting had been a wonderful benefit to the Giants in the 2000s, leading up to it going to Carolina.
Yes.
He's a scout. He doesn't understand how much things are worth. He understands what people can do on the field. The exact opposite of what I am, in my opinion. Like I can't do anything that he does, but I can understand things that he clearly hasn't been able to understand. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think he's calling the shots. I think he is watching tape now, which is, I think, where his skill set is at its best. And I think, when we find guys like, a Darius Slayton or something like that, I think, you go back to the end of 2020, Judge is saying, I want more speed at linebacker, some guys who can play special teams, some guys who can, kind of change the bottom of the roster. Gettleman finds the Carter Coughlin, the Cam Browns, and the Tay Crowders or whatever. And I'm giving Gettleman credit there. I know he's gotten some of their names wrong in some interviews or whatever. So, but I think they're working together healthily in that respect. Like Judge is seeing like what they need. But remember, before Judge came over from the Patriots, who were the kings of trading down, we weren't looking at trading down. And if you go back, a lot of people forget about this. But when we picked McKinney last year, they also said that they loved McKinney. But if he weren't on the board, they had a trade agreed on that they would have moved down. But only because McKinney was there, they went with him instead. Like all these changes in fundamentally how they approach these big picture decisions kind of started after Judge came. So I think I think there's a real philosophical shift that I completely credit to Judge. I mean,
that's a fair point to make. That's completely fair. Completely fair.
Like, and then I'll also say if I don't want to give Gettleman the same type of credit for Nick Gates panning out as I would give him for a guy that he targeted, because Nick Gates was clearly not a priority. He came to us as an undrafted free agent, and he ended up working head and shoulders above what anyone else would do.
You think Gettleman got lucky there, is what I'm saying.
Well, I think there's more luck involved with that than there would be in had DeAndre Baker worked out and been the best corner of his draft, then I'd be like, okay, Gettleman chose the best corner. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was, Gettleman figured Gates is the best interior lineman and he'll be available back then. I figured maybe he's on a list and, they got a guy from the list who ended up working out. You know what I mean?
Well, what's funny is I think that Gettleman actually has drafted better late in the drafts than he has early in the drafts, which tells me, which kind of goes with because I like Darius Slayton, a 5th round draft pick.
Yeah,
like, that's a good pick.
Even Ryan Connolly looked like a hell of a 5th round pick. I mean, obviously, it didn't work out, but any 5th rounder who can flash and potentially look like a 1st round starter is a good pick.
Tay Crowder was starting last year for the Giants. Like, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad, but he's a late draft pick, and there's multiple examples of that of Gettleman picking late in the draft and getting.
I mean, and the example before he came in, Andrew Norwell from Carolina, who's now one of the top guards, in football. Mm-hmm. He was an undrafted free agent that Gettleman found. Like he knows what he's doing, but my issue with him is maybe he identified that Nate Solder was the best tackle on the market in 2018, but he didn't say, okay, here's a price point where after that it's not worth it. Like Nate Solder could have said, I want $40 million. And I'm not convinced that Gettleman wouldn't be like, all right, well, he's the best guy. We got to go with that, at some point, maybe at $7 million or something like that, he would have been worth it, even if it weren't the best choice for 2022. But at some point, the straw breaks the camel's back. And I don't think Gettleman asks those hard questions, which in my opinion, puts it on fans to say, I would love to be the fan who just cheers for the guys without thinking about these things. But if I don't feel like the GM is asking those hard questions, I feel like I've kind of got to ask those questions in the back of my head. You know what I mean?
Well, a couple more questions, and
Yeah.
I'll let you go. So Nate Solder, like, I think it's a good thing that he's playing right tackle for the Giants. I don't think his contract was good. I would agree with that. And obviously he didn't have a very good year his last year. And Gettleman, in some regards, I think that he has to bring Solder back because he wants to show that, like, this was a good thing to bring him on the roster, right? And playing him at right tackle, obviously they went and got Thomas. I think is going to be a big deal for the Giants. Like, I think it's going to help the Giants offensive line this year. I really think he's going to bring value. Do you think, and you can give me your opinion on Solder, but do you think that the weakness still is, as a fan, is the offensive line for the Giants?
So I liked what the Giants did this offseason with the offensive line, and I'm very much in the minority of saying this.
I hear that.
With Solder and Zeitler, they were both in the positions where, at their current contracts, with the cap declining, with all the improvement the Giants wanted to make, they couldn't really come back. Zeitler was ready for a change of scenery. He wanted to be a part of a contender, so the Giants granted him that. Solder had something to prove to the Giants. He knew he didn't deliver, in my opinion, from his first contract, and he's the type of person who wants to put the team first and wants to go on a note without being that contract albatross, who wants to actually have something about what happened on the field to go out. So I think he was willing to restructure. He was willing to give the Giants a chance to kind of get something out of get a couple quarters for the dollar they spent. And given that he was willing to come back, I think keeping him made more sense than just cutting him. I thought getting rid of the contract was important, but
sure,
keeping him on the roster, I think is fine. I don't think he's just a liability by himself. Obviously, I was rooting for Pert to win that starting job. I think you want the young guys to win, just like I'm sure Denver would have wanted Locke to beat out Bridgewater to show that they have confidence in the young cheap guy. But if that's not the case, you want the better guy to go out there. And I don't necessarily think that means Pert's career's done, but I think Pert was at UConn, a very bad program.
I think Pert still has every opportunity to be a 10-year starter in this league. Like, I don't know why any of these Giant fans, because I did see that too on Twitter, most notably, where it's like, oh, they're just no chance Pert, because they just assume that Solder is still bad. And so they just say, well, if Solder beat him out, then he can't make it in this league. He's terrible. I just think Pert was raw, like you said, like he's coming out of UConn. Solder, at the end of the day, is still a two-time Super Bowl winning tackle.
And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, there's some back issues with Pert, and there might be some some health issues. He's obviously massive guy, but if you look at the Giants' offensive line right now, all five.
Oh hell! I lost Will. You hate to see it. I think Will was getting ready to make a damn good point, and we just lost him. We just completely lost him. That's sad. That's sad. Look, so let me, and maybe he'll be able to come back. Let me explain this for what you guys have been watching. So Will is if you're on Twitter, give him a follow. He's very, very opinionated about the Giants, very opinionated about Dave Gettleman. I thought it would be a great discussion to bring one of these Twitter guys over here on YouTube and give them an opportunity to kind of explain, someone who might be anti-Gettleman. You guys know that I'm very pro Gettleman. I think that I think a lot of the moves that he's made has been, not all great, but been good enough to put on a winning product. All right, we got him back. Here we go. I thought somebody attacked you. Good to see you back.
You never know with these guys we got on Giants Twitter. My phone died for a second. Luckily, I got my battery pack with me. But
all right, so just finish up your point on the
what I was trying to say. You look at all five positions. You got the two tackles we talked about, Thomas and Pert. You got the two guards, Lemieux and Hernandez, and then you got Gates at center. Those are young guys who you've got a young guy who's competing for a starter at every position. So I don't want, I didn't necessarily want the Giants to use a first-round pick and draft over one of these guys and necessarily take him out of play. And I'm not saying you can't get better with 5 young guys. But, I look at the OL we had that was the core of our 2 Super Bowls that had two day 2 picks. It had McKenzie was the 3rd and Snee was the 2nd. Deal was the 5th, and then there are 2 undrafted free agents. Like, you don't always need, 3 first-round picks on your offensive line. So I was kind of happy that the Giants, prioritized some other positions, and especially when you saw how much the guard market went down over this offseason with veteran guards taking pay cuts and going elsewhere. I thought that there would be some good players who were available at the end of camp. And yeah, I understand that people think that the Giants are panicking, but I kind of felt like this was always in the cards from the beginning. And I want to say that Ben Bredesen, very specifically, I think he's going to be a starter by October, and I think he's
yeah.
I think he's really going to be a guy that helps that puts some glue on this line. From what I understand, he's thrilled to be a Giant now, and I think obviously the 2 biggest question marks have to be right now Hernandez getting back, even though he looked really good in preseason, and Lemieux obviously with this knee issue. But if we can fit Bredesen in, then I think this offensive line is only going to get better, because it's not necessarily about who you've got; it's about how they play together, and that's not like a 1-year thing. That's that started last year, and I think it's going to only get better this year.
So let me ask you this: is the last question.
Yeah.
What do you think the Giants' record is going to be in 2021?
So I had a feeling that was going to be the last question. And, I will criticize big picture Giants moves, and I will criticize the direction, but I don't like going into a Giants game where I'm not, in my head completely expecting, treating it like I'm expecting to win.
Sure.
And that's frankly part of why I am so unhealthily bent out of shape about the Giants' dysfunction, because I, want to invest myself 100% into being a Homer fan. So, I mean, the only prediction I realistically will allow myself to make is 17-0. But if you see my Twitter brand, you're very surprised to hear me say that potentially. But I think, look, if the Giants win 7 or 8 games, I think as a math guy, I think I would surprise you if I said I don't have a lot of respect for Las Vegas. And if Vegas thinks 7 or 8 games, then it's probably pretty close to 7 or 8 games. I think Vegas knows these things, and frankly, I think if Vegas has us as underdogs against a Broncos team that nobody respects, that scares me a lot more than being like a 10-point underdog against a team that's like at the very top of the league.
Sure.
So I think to give you an answer, I think 10-7 is kind of the high end of what the Giants could be looking at. I thought last year we would be about 5-1 in the division, because I didn't think the division last year was very good. I think that could be the case again. I think Washington's going to be the only team that's going to be tougher this year than they were last year, outside of other teams getting healthier. But I think the Giants can go 10-7 and win the division. But like I said, even if that's the case, I don't think it absolves the last 3 years of hell we've been through.
Okay. Will, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a lot of fun talking Giants football with you.
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, hope to see you in the parking lot this year.
Oh yeah, you'll see me. But I appreciate it, man. Give this guy a follow on Twitter if you want to hear him hate on Dave Gettleman. I'm just messing. Yeah, give this guy a follow. I'm sure he wouldn't mind it. But I appreciate you coming on, Will.
What do you have for the record this year?
I'm right there with you on 10-7. I think 10-7 is possible. I think the Giants can win this division. Although I think the Cowboys are a pretty good team. And at the same time, I don't think 9-8 is not. I think honestly, this team, if it was a regular 16-game schedule before, obviously they added I think the Giants would be staring at least an 8-8 schedule. But I think 9-8 is possible. I think we're going to sweep the Eagles. I think we're potentially going to split with Washington, and I think that the Cowboys could, either we split or I think we'll split with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think that actually fits. I think what I would say, split with the.
And honestly, the Cowboys. I think we would sweep Washington, but I think the matchup in week 2 is I hate going on the road on a Thursday night against Washington. I think that's not a good thing for the Giants.
And then the last question I'll give you, I guess, before we call this, outside of Daniel Jones, who are the three most important Giants to this season?
Well, those that follow my channel know that I love Darius Slayton. I
Okay.
think Darius Slayton, I thought he had all the makings to be a number one receiver. I think he was hurt last year, so that hurt him. But now that with Kenny Golladay, on board, now with Saquon Barkley back in the mix, I think a guy like Darius Slayton can take the next step and continue to build on what he has. And I think he's still going to be a big playmaker for this Giants team. Obviously, Daniel Jones has got to, I think it's really important for him because he needs to show that he can be the franchise quarterback.
Sure.
Even Eli was getting a lot of hate early in his career. In year 4, he took the Giants to the Super Bowl. So,
I tell the story all the time. The Giants Vikings, his 4th year, the game where he threw 3 pick sixes, 4 interceptions.
I remember that. Yeah, I think Darren Sharper was getting him, wasn't it? Like one of those players.
It could be. I don't remember exactly, but I was 18 years old at the time. I was in the bathroom at the stadium, and somebody was saying, "We've got to replace this bum," and I was like, "I still believe in him." This guy spilled his beer on me on my head right as I was at the urinal. It's Eli's year 4. Like I'm like, imagine if Eli was around in the Twitter era. Oh my goodness.
I know. They would have burned him. And then as far as like a third player goes, like
gotta go with someone on defense, right?
Yeah, I've got high hopes for him, and this is to me a make it or break it is Lorenzo Carter. Because there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of people that do not think that we have a pass rusher. They do not think we have somebody that can bring, there was a lot of debate about the draft about why did we not go get a pass rusher. To me, I think they've got something with Lorenzo.
We did obviously, but yeah, I know you mean in round 1.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I feel like they got a guy in Lorenzo Carter that can be special. I think they've got somebody who can take that next step and be a force if he can stay healthy, and then how he succeeds in Patrick Graham's defensive scheme is important as well. But so those three kind of are the guys, Jones, Slate, and Lorenzo Carter. If those three step up, I think the Giants are going to have a really good year. Because I think Galladay's going to do his thing. Barkley's going to do his, assuming all these guys stay healthy. Martinez will do his, Bradbury, Peppers, and Ryan. But those guys need to take their game to another level. And if they're able to do that, then the sky's the limit for the Giants, I feel like.
Yeah, I think I really like that Lorenzo Carter answer. I think, I probably wouldn't put him on my list because I feel like the edge position for us right now is pretty crowded with with a bunch of guys who frankly have potential and could be that guy. I think, including the other edge out of Georgia. But I think, obviously, you saw what Patrick Graham was saying and how he said it the other day. I mean, Carter's a guy that, this team really, really wants to see succeed. And it would be thrilling to get something from him. I'm surprised to hear you say Slayton because I do feel like he's like a clear WR4 for us right now. Maybe actually probably Tony's the fourth, but I think they're going to try to.
I'm not expecting anything from Tony this year.
Okay.
If he gives us anything,
he's a bonus.
Right. Yeah, he's a bonus. To me, I'm just not expecting anything from him.
So I'm a Florida Gator fan. So I was very excited to see Kadarius Toney. I mean, I was much more excited to see the Chicago's first round pick in 2022. But
I was too. That to me, I like Toney. I think Toney can do something. But I'm more happy about the first round draft pick for next year. And I'm not a draft guy.
Okay.
I'm not one of these that's like, let's talk about the draft in November. Like I'll talk about the draft when it's time. But to me, getting Toney with a first is great.
Right. And I think, you talk obviously what a lot of people are thinking about is maybe the Giants are going to need a quarterback. But it looks like, worst case scenario, the worst case is a lot less bad than the worst case would have been without having more ammunition for next year. So I'll give you 3 names. The first name that I would go with is Andrew Thomas. I think Thomas is, on par with Jones as being, one of the most important people. And I think,
Absolutely.
Paul Schwartz said something today that the organization's concerned. And Paul Schwartz, who's like Mr. Optimist, is concerned. I think he kind of says what the organization wants him to. But if he's concerned, then that's when I start to actually, get concerned. Because I think year two of a tackle, I'm not usually too worried. But if the guys who picked him get worried, that's when that starts to change. And then I would say, just to set you off a little bit, I'll say Evan Engram, because I think if he's doing what they want him to do,
you got to give it up, Will.
I think it makes everybody's life easier.
You got to give Evan Engram up.
And then lastly, I'll say Bradbury, because I just think, having that CB1, or even Adoree is shortly behind that, but having those quarterbacks who can really take a game-changing wide receiver out of the game is just it's a passing league now. And I'm definitely an old school fan who likes to see running the ball, rushing the passer, good special teams play. But
I'm with you on. I think Andrew Thomas is a good. I think he does definitely need to step up. Absolutely. For me, I truly just miss the Giants having a really nice pass rush, because to me, when they had a really nice pass rush or an enforcer, whether it was Strahan, Ossie, or Tuck, it made the secondary players even better.
Yeah, I completely. Strahan and Ossie, you're naming all my favorite, Giants from growing up. But I got a cop. Appreciate.
I appreciate you coming on, Will.
Definitely do it again sometime soon, and hopefully we'll chat again soon at 1-0.
All right, let's do it, Will. Thanks, man.
All right, have a good one. Enjoy your weekend.
You too. So follow him on Twitter if you'd like. We had a great discussion. So to finish up what I was saying before you hop back on, I thought it was great to have somebody who views the team completely different than I do, and have a discussion about it and come to terms with it. To me, that's what's great about the Giants fan base is there's a lot of different opinions, and everybody thinks they're right because we feel so strongly about the Giants. And that's just the way it is. So I thought it was a great discussion. I want to say something and not necessarily correct him, but I want to do a little teaching here, just because I do know what I'm talking about here. And I for those that are watching, you can think about this on itself. So he mentioned the win totals that Vegas sets, right? They call it Vegas. So Vegas actually doesn't set any lines as far as betting goes, as far as win totals goes, as far as spreads goes. A lot of that stuff is actually made up offshore. So offshore, and Vegas just piggybacks off those lines. So, he had talked about the Giants win total being, I think, somewhere like 7, 6.5, something like that. Somewhere around those. And I've seen those numbers out there, maybe even as high as 7.5. And everybody says, well, Vegas knows. The truth about it is, about all those spreads where the win totals, or even a spread like this week where the Broncos are 3-point favorites, the books put out these numbers to entice bettors to take bets on these. Okay. And the idea is for the books to get two-way action, 50-50 action, so that regardless what happens, they make money. There's a reason why there's minus 110 on both sides, because they want 50-50 action, and doesn't matter who wins, they make money off the juice. Okay. So you're not going to put a number out there that's not enticing for people to take, where you get just one-sided action. So the reason I say all that is because, the line is set, and sure, there's potential that it could get close to that number. But the reality is you have to put something out there for people to actually consider either buying or not buying. Okay. So if you just want to talk about spreads alone, Broncos are 3-point favorites, and everybody says, well, that means the Broncos, there's something going on. But the reality is that public perception is that the Giants are not very good. That's the public perception. And there's people that are not willing to bet on Daniel Jones. They're not willing to bet on the Giants in general. They're more willing to bet on Teddy Bridgewater, who before he seriously got hurt was a really good quarterback, was a probably a playoff quarterback. He got a raw deal probably out in Carolina, but that is the reality. He's a really good player. The Broncos are a really good team, but that doesn't mean that the Broncos are automatically a guaranteed winner. Not saying that's what Will was saying, but the fact is betting lines, regardless if it's win totals or spreads for games, any of that stuff is all about putting it out there for the public to understand what to take and bet. That's the point. That's the reality. So if you go on a sports book, wherever you're located, and they said the Giants win totals at 7, it does not mean the Giants are automatically going to be 7-10. Okay. Doesn't mean that it won't be close. Doesn't mean it won't be borderline between that 6, 7, 8, maybe possibly 9 number. The reality is the number is set so it is enticing people to bet on it, but not only enticing people to bet on it, to get two-way action. Okay? Again, that's the point. Some people can look at that and say, whoa, that's a low number. I think they're going to win the NFC East. Give it to me. Some people can say Daniel Jones fucking sucks, and I'm going to take under 7 wins. So, that is honestly how that stuff is said. There are no answers to that. So I hear people say that. I just want to, and if you're not a bettor or stuff like that, you're going to say things like, well, that's what Vegas, but Vegas doesn't set that stuff. It's all offshore. Okay. So, yeah. So again, that was a good discussion. There's Will is somebody who is very like Mike Too Nice. Right. I think a lot of you know that I'm very anti Mike Too Nice, who has a presence here on YouTube, has a presence on Twitter, and is very much an anti-Gettleman guy. I feel like Mike Too Nice, I've asked him to come on and have a discussion with me, and he will not do that. Maybe he's just not as manly enough as Will was. But to me, a lot of these guys who are anti-Gettleman, for example, Mike Too Nice, I feel like want to see the Giants fail so that they can say that they were right about so-and-so. Speaking with Will there, I don't think Will falls in that category. I don't think he wants to see the Giants fail so he can say he was wrong about Gettleman. I think that he has a strong opinion. I think he just has I think he feels some type of way about how 2018 went down, and he can't let that go. There's no look, I think you have to move on, but there's nothing wrong with having that feeling, because 2018 was a pivotal year for the Giants. And if you are like Will, it is fair to say that maybe it's still affecting 2021. Like maybe it is. Maybe you're right about that. I definitely look, as someone who loved Eli Manning, I definitely can make the case that Eli Manning is the reason why this organization is still struggling to find its way back on its feet, because we held on to him maybe a year, maybe 2 years too long. You could, and I'll say this. Let me make this point to you. Eli, probably after the 2016 playoff game against the Packers, all that you see quarterbacks, Brady, Brett Favre did it. Joe Montana did it. I'm not saying Eli's those guys, but the point is they get to a certain point into the career with a team. They're not done playing, but that team isn't good for them anymore. Okay? It's just not a place for them anymore. And so they have to go somewhere else to continue their career. And the reality is that the Giants probably, after 2016, Eli probably should have done what was best for him and said, look, I can't be on part of this team going forward because it's just not going to be good for my career going forward. But Eli was so damn loyal to the fucking bone that he couldn't he's going to stay with the Giants. But the reality is if there was been a split right after that 2016 season and the Giants would have done a tough decision and moved on, who knows where we would be in 2021. So I'm all for moving forward in 20 and being focused on 2021, but those are fun debates to have because we've had terrible seasons after our last playoff game against the Packers. And I think a lot of that looks at, you look at that a lot of pointing towards Eli. And so these guys are so opinionated on Twitter, and some of them here on YouTube, about Dave Gettleman. They're so opinionated about the coaches or the quarterbacks, Daniel Jones. And so you want to have a discussion with these guys to see where they fall. And I think Will is just still a guy stuck in 2018, and he's not going to be able to let it go until those players those people and those players are either do something great for the Giants or just completely gone in general. So it sounded like there was nothing. And this is another point, a great reason why I brought him on. There are some Giant fans out there that no matter what the Giants do, they're not going to like Dave Gettleman. That's the reality. And that's something that I want pro Dave Gettleman fans to know. Like, you can't convince them otherwise. And I'm not saying they're idiots and wrongs, because at the end of the day, like, we can't, as Giant fans, the guys that are pro Gettleman guys, we don't even have results to show. We don't even have anything to present to people that are anti-Gettleman guys. We have nothing. We don't have a playoff win. We don't have a playoff team. So it's one of those things where you're never going to change those people's opinions, right? Just like you probably were never going to change the opinions of people who were done with Eli. Guys like Daniel Jones, they're always going to have people that are going to be against him because of where the Giants drafted him. Like, that's the reality. Like, they're always going to be that. And then as far as Joe Judge goes, it seems like Joe Judge, as long as he provides a winner, there will never be anybody that will be anti-Joe Judge. Yeah, it just seems like to me that he's got the fan base's support in so many ways. So, look, I see some of you guys. So, that's just I'm thankful Will came on. I'm glad he came on. It was a really good discussion. I think it was a fun discussion. We kind of went all over the place, but, it's all centered around Giants football. Two guys who probably view things completely different. But moving on, but I want to thank him for coming on. Moving on, I see some people talking about, I saw a lot of Cowboys talk. Look, I'm happy, obviously, the Cowboys lost last night to the Bucs, but, the Cowboys, in my opinion, have every chance to be a really damn good team. Like, I think Dak is a really good quarterback. I think Dak is look, I said it last night on Twitter, and I'll say it right here now. I think Dak has every chance to be the best Cowboys quarterback of all time. I really believe that. Like, Dak has got, it looks like Dak, the game has slowed down to Dak. And the reason why I say that is because he had a fumbled snap last night where his snap comes in. He just casually picks it up, throws a touchdown. And you see shit like that, and you're like, well, damn, the game is slowed down to him. Like he's really fucking good. And like, it's such a lucky thing that the Cowboys drafted him when they did, because they really found, I feel like, a gem with him. I mean, I really feel like they found a really good guy. So, Dak, and here's the thing too, and I give Chris Collinsworth a lot of credit for mentioning this last night. He didn't suffer a knee injury. It was an ankle injury. If it was a knee injury, of course, I don't wish that on anybody, but if it was a knee injury, then yeah, you would say that would have probably affected his career. He suffered an ankle injury. So that's not as severe. And, I think my assessment of the Cowboys was the same thing I felt about Hard Knocks. I thought Dak was a good dude. When I watched Hard Knocks, I thought Dak was a good dude who's a guy who's going to be a good leader for their team and is a good player. Zeke is smart about the game of football, but he's a goofball. Probably smokes pot. Nothing against that, but probably likes to puff, kind of, likes to giggle a lot. their coaches stink. I don't think their coaches is any good. I don't think any of their coaches are good. Like, I just think their coaches stink. And I think that's going to eventually hold them back. And I'm very anti-Micah Parsons, okay? And there were some giant content creators that really liked Micah Parsons. And what I noticed last night was Micah Parsons, granted, first game in the league, but that he looked gassed most of the night. And when you're gassed, you're out of position. You're not playing at a high level. And to me, he got kind of exposed a little bit last night. So, I think the Cowboys are a really good team, but what the Giants have in favor for them when it comes to the Cowboys is the fact that the guys that are leading the ship are fucking, in my opinion, idiots. Like, I've said good things about Jerry Jones. I've said good things about Jerry Jones because I feel like I would be like Jerry Jones. I would be in the meetings, with him, with the team, saying who's making and who's not. Like I would be I would be Jerry Jones 2.0. If I had a helicopter that took me to the fucking stadium, I would say, yeah, circle that bitch twice. I want everybody to know that Pizzle's in the house. Like I would do that, just like Jerry Jones, 100%. But Jerry Jones likes having a coach who will be a yes man to him. Like that's the reality. That's the reality that Cowboy fans have to face, is the fact that, like, and truth be told, like, Jerry Jones may be a smart football man, maybe he's not. I think he just sees what's good, what he thinks is good for the team, and that doesn't mean that that's a good football opinion. So I think that the coaching staff, in my opinion, is they have to look up to Jerry. And I think it's going to eventually end up holding them back, even though they got a really good team. CeeDee Lamb is a stud. Zeke is a stud. I think he's only got a couple years left, but he's a stud. Gallup, fucking Cooper. Like, their offensive line is okay. Like, defensively, like, they do need some work. But, like, as Giant fans, we should, like, who are we to talk? We had a team literally give up 90 points in 2 weeks, and then we went on and won the Super Bowl that year. A defense can figure it out at any point. They just have to start playing together. I mean, a defense just has to figure it out and start playing together. And here's another thing too, for anybody. And I'm not pro Cowboys here, so I don't want anybody give me shit. But the Cowboys have a lot of new pieces on their defense. A lot of new pieces. Appreciate authentic. A lot of new pieces. Okay. That has to build some chemistry. And they went against the Super Bowl champs last year. Like, they have every reason to give up a lot of points due to the fact that there's a lot of new pieces that have to figure out how to play together. So if I'm a Cowboys fan, and I looked at last night's game, I'd say, yeah, my offense looks really fucking good. And if my defense can just figure out how to play together, we're going to be a good team. Hopefully McCarthy and the coaching staff don't fuck it up. Right? So that's the way I view the Cowboys. That's how there's a lot of people that were trying to be cute this offseason and say a team like Washington's going to win this division. Washington's not going to win this fucking division. They're not winning this division. Yeah, they might have a top 5 defense, but Fitzpatrick is not winning. Is not going to win this division, QB in the Washington. It's not happening. There's no way. It's just not. I mean, they're going to be in contention, but they're not winning the division. I don't care what anybody says. Philly's not doing anything this year. Like, they're just not. Philly's winning 4 or 5 games tops. It's going to be a really bad team. So to me, the Cowboys and the Giants are 2 teams that are going to are going to battle this thing out. And I can't wait to play the Cowboys. I can't wait because I want to see how the Giants stack up against them. I honestly do. But look, they lost last night. Washington's going to be in a 50-50 game against the Chargers. That game could go either way, coin flip. Philly, for sure, I think, is losing to Atlanta. I mean, beat the Broncos and you might be in first place already, right out of the gate. So as far as the Bronco game goes, you know, I want to talk about that. Then I'm gonna shut down the stream. This has been a great stream. We had Will on from Twitter. It was a good discussion. Anti-Gettleman guy, and then we've done a little chat in here. But the Giants can win this game against the Broncos, but they really need to play. They need to play good. They need to play well. They can't just roll their helmets out there. They can't go out there and play mistake football. They can't go out there and turn the ball over 2 or 3 times and expect to win. There's no chance. They got to play. They can't turn the ball over. I don't think Saquon Barkley is going to have a huge say in this game. Sure, he can make a play here and there, but I think he's getting no more than 12 to 15 touches, and that includes passing catches. I think that I'm worried about Galladay. What is he going to bring? Didn't show a whole lot. He had the hamstring deal most of the offseason. I don't think Evan Ingram's going to play. So what are we getting at tight end? You heard Will earlier talk about he didn't like Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph's got to prove it, right? What is this offensive line going to do against Bradley Chubb and Von Miller? What is Tony going to bring to us? We have no idea what Tony's going to bring to us. Tony could be sensational. He could look awful. To me, I have no idea what I'm getting with Tony. Again, I go back to that draft and I say I love the Tony pick because it comes with a first-round draft pick for next year, right? I think this defense is going to perform, but I'm going to tell you right now, Jerry Jeudy is getting ready to have a big, huge breakout year for the Broncos. Really fucking good year, I think. But we're going to have Bradbury out there, right? And he's going to be out there, and hopefully he's going to be slowing them down. You got to, whether you're a Giants fan or not, you got to admit that Bradbury is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And on top of that, we've got one of the best secondaries, I feel like, in the league when healthy. So defensively, I think the Giants can play well. I think this is a low-scoring game. But what is low-scoring game standards today in the NFL? Would you say low-scoring is 10-9? Is low-scoring game still considered 17-13? It's a league that obviously last night we're looking at 60 points in the opening game last night, right? So what is a low-scoring game now in the NFL? I think that's different than what it used to be. Back in the day, you'd argue that 7-6 was the low-scoring game, but now I think that's a little different in today's time. So, I view this game. I think this game's going to come down to defenses, and I think this game's going to come down to who has the ball last in the Broncos-Giants game. And I think it's going to be tight. I really do. I think this is going to be a tight game. But here's the thing. For those that are watching, they're Giant fans. A Cowboys fan, a Washington fan, and an Eagles fan is not going to give us credit if we win this game. Okay? And I get that. I get why they wouldn't give us credit because the Denver Broncos weren't a playoff team a year ago. But what I'm saying to Giant fans is that this is a game that I think we will look, if we win this game, because I do think the Denver Broncos are going to be successful in 2021. This is a game that if we win, we'll look back on and say, damn, that was a nice win. That's what I think we'll look back on if we win this game. If we lose this game and Denver goes on and does what I think they can do this season, we'll look back on and say, damn, that was a tough week 1 matchup. But the reality is that this Denver team is not a bad team. They're not a bad team at all. We're not playing the Jaguars. We're not playing the Houston Texans. We're not playing the Philadelphia Eagles. We're playing a Denver Broncos team that's borderline playoff team this year. So this is a game that the Giants have to prove themselves to not only the fan base, but they also got to prove themselves to the media, right? Because obviously being in the New York market, if they can pile on a couple wins, people will start to say, should we believe into this Giants team? And if they lose a couple games, then it's all hell's going to break loose and it's time to fire somebody. I think this game is super important because I absolutely hate the week 2 matchup against Washington on a short week on the road. I fucking hate that game for the Giants. And I'm going to, as I said the other day, I'm going to be streaming that game. So that's a game that I think if the Giants can win, even though we've owned Washington, that's a game that I feel like if the Giants can win, we'll be still in that game. But if the Giants can, there's a lot of guys out there that just automatically write in Giants 2-0. And I'm like, shit, man, if we just get out of it 1-1, I'll be happy. I don't want to go 0-2. I know that damn much. But if we go out of it 2-0, that's fucking awesome. That's really awesome. That's better than awesome. So yeah, the week 2 matchup is just not good for the Giants. It's just not good. You got a great defense. Washington's going to be healthy. They're going to be hitting on all. They're going to be healthy, and their defense is still going to be really good. Unless obviously Chase Young gets hurt in week 1, but that's a team that's going to be really tough for the Giants in a short week on a Thursday night. It's just the reality of it. Even years that we've owned Washington, there's been spots where, you've seen it too, where they've had backup quarterbacks like Todd Collins would pop up and beat us because the spot wasn't good for the Giants. It wasn't a good spot for the Giants. And so Washington would win those games. So that's the way I view that week 2 matchup. So it's really important that the Giants can do something in this week 1 game and get a dub. It's very, very important. So anyways, you guys will obviously see me Sunday night after the game, win or lose, right? There's nobody on YouTube who's going to show up and give you this kind of quality content after a post game than Pizzle. I would argue that although my channel may not be the best when it comes to the totality of other channels, right? There's no question that the post-game videos, though, nobody brings it better than Pizzle. Nobody. You can't find it anywhere else, right? And so, and when we go live for the games, those are great too. Those are amazing. So we're going to do that for sure week 2 against Washington. So appreciate you guys joining the stream. Hope you enjoyed this little midday action on a Friday. The last this is the last week that we didn't have football, and now we've got football this Sunday. And I told Baby Doll, I said, I'll see you at the Super Bowl. Like you'll get to talk to me again when the Super Bowl gets here. Because after that, then I can go back to doing other regular things. But football's here now. The Giants are here. Like you went from being my number 1 love to now you got to take second string to the Giants. Like they're my baby now. Like that's the steak, right? You got to be the potatoes. The Giants are the steak. They're the main course now. So, maybe I'm in the doghouse here at the Pizzle residence. Maybe I'm not. We'll have to wait and see. But I'd really like to see the Giants win because the other years have been rough, and so it leaves for a rough household, as some of you may know. So anyways, love you guys. Appreciate your support. Thank you so much for Will coming on today. Thank you guys for watching. I had a lot of fun chatting it up with you guys. And, of course, you'll see me this weekend. And, you're going to see a lot of content, actually, because we got that short week coming up. So anyways, you guys have a good rest of your day. And, of course, go Big Blue.